guys, welcome to all of you in our YouTube channel Gurmantra Siksha Ka Granth. I'm your educator Saranya here, and today we're going to see G protein coupled receptor pathways. So, in the previous class, we saw about the G protein coupled receptors, a little more information about the G proteins, primary and secondary messengers. So, in this class, we're going to deal with cyclic AMP pathway and IP3 and DAG pathway, which are very important because you'll get questions from this area. So have your notebook and pen with you so that you can make the notes, because these are pathways. For you to understand the pathway and remember it, there's only one trick, that you have to practice them. Okay. So I have written notes here in this video, so you can actually copy the pathway in a simplified manner which I've given you in this lecture, and you can study from that. That will be very much useful to you. So have a notebook and pen with you. Start writing the important points and the pathways, so that when you study, you will not have any hassle at all. Okay. So let's start with the cyclic AMP pathway. So before going into the pathway, let's understand few terms like what is cyclic AMP. Okay, the name itself says that there is some kind of cyclization, and AMP means adenosine monophosphate. Okay, cyclic AMP is 3-5- cyclic adenosine monophosphate. Okay, cyclic adenosine monophosphate. It is a secondary messenger. Okay, cyclic AMP is a secondary messenger. Note it down. Okay, and it is useful in different kind of biological processes. Also, cyclic AMP is a derivative of ATP. ATP is nothing but adenosine triphosphate, which means adenosine will have three phosphate groups attached to it. AMP will have only one monophosphate, only one phosphate group attached to it, and this will be useful in the signal transduction processes. Also, cyclic AMP is called as adenalic acid. Note this down, because this they might ask you in GATE examination, like what is adenalic acid? That is nothing but your cyclic AMP only. Again, cyclic AMP is synthesized from ATP. Okay, so ATP is converted to cyclic AMP by the enzyme adenylate cyclase. So adenylate cyclase is the enzyme, key enzyme here, which converts your ATP to cyclic AMP. Okay, and this is located in the inner side of the plasma membrane. Your adenylate cyclase is a membrane bound enzyme which is present on the inner side of the plasma membrane here. Okay, this cyclic AMP decomposition, which means after the work of cyclic AMP has been done, it has to be brought back to its original state, which means there should be deactivation of cyclic AMP or decomposition of cyclic AMP to AMP, okay, to normal 5-AMP. That is done by the enzyme phosphodiesterase, okay. So phosphodiesterase is an enzyme that will convert your cyclic AMP to 5-AMP or just AMP, okay. You can see the structure of ATP here. You have a sugar, you have a base here, and this is your three phosphates. Okay, so this is your three phosphates, adenosine triphosphate. Okay, now this adenylyl cyclase is an enzyme. What it will do is it will first remove the two phosphates from here, so that it will become monophosphate in nature. Then there will be cyclization between this alpha phosphate and the hydrogen group here. Okay, cyclization will take place. You can see the structure of cyclic AMP here. You have a base here, you have a sugar, and cyclization of phosphate here. Okay, so this is cyclic AMP. Okay, when phosphodiesterase is coming into action, it will break this cyclization, and this will just be 5-AMP. Okay, so the G protein exists either in the active state or inactive state. If this G protein is bound to GTP, okay, G protein is bound to GTP, okay, which means it is active. It is active state. And if the G protein is bound to GDP, which means it is inactive. Okay. G proteins exist either in an active or in an inactive state, depending on if it is bound to GTP or GDP in the inactive state. Okay. When you talk about the inactive state, G protein will be bound to GDP, and in the active state, GTP will be bound to G protein. Okay, G protein will be bound to GTP. So active is GTP, inactive is GDP. Okay. So the next is G protein has an intrinsic GTPase activity. So GTPase is basically an enzyme that will hydrolyze. Okay, that will hydrolyze GTP. You can see here it will hydrolyze GTP to GDP by removal of a phosphate group. Okay, so G protein have intrinsic GTPase activity which will convert the bound GTP. It will convert the bound GTP to GDP by removal of a phosphate group. Okay. So this hydrolysis of GTP, so this hydrolysis of GTP by the G protein, okay, so the hydrolysis of GTP by the G protein, what will happen? It will convert the G protein. It will convert the G protein back to the inactive state. Okay. In the inactive state, G protein will be bound to GDP. Okay. Thus, the cycle of the G protein is as follows. So what happens is your hormone will bind to the receptor. Hormone is nothing but your ligand. Your ligand will bind to the receptor. The hormone and the receptor will be activated. The receptor activation will happen. Okay. The activated receptor will activate the G protein. Okay. When the G protein is active, we already saw it will be bound to GTP. Okay. GTP. GDP will be replaced by GTP. So G protein in its active form will be bound to GTP. Okay. So this GTP bound G protein, okay, this will interact with an enzyme called as adenylate cyclase. So this GTP bound G protein is also called as G alpha GTP. G alpha subunit GTP. Okay, that will interact with the adenylate cyclase. Okay, so this is what happens when G protein is bound to GTP. If there is hydrolysis of GTP to GDP, okay, so the G protein will become inactive and go back to its original state when there was no ligand bound to the receptor. Okay, so this is the cycle of G protein activation and inactivation. In the previous lecture, we saw that G protein will be activated by the factor called as guanine nucleotide exchange factor, GEF. So GEF will be useful for activation of G protein because the GEF factor will replace the GDP with GTP. Okay, and the enzyme that is responsible for hydrolysis of GTP is GAP. Okay, GTP is activating protein. So this enzyme will break down or hydrolyze the GTP to GDP, and the G protein will go back to its inactive state. Okay, so you'll have to remember all of these concepts because each and every concept is linked to each other. Like you have to know what is the function of GEF, what is the function of GAP. Okay, so different G proteins may either stimulate or inhibit the adenylate cyclase. Okay, and therefore it will make a difference in the concentration of cyclic AMP. Either it can increase the concentration of cyclic AMP or it can decrease the concentration of cyclic AMP. So this is a diagram, a very clear and self-explanatory diagram which will explain you what happens to G alpha GTP in its active and inactive state. Okay. You can see here you have a hormone. that binds to your receptor, activated receptor here. Okay. So when the receptor is activated, this is G protein coupled receptor obviously. This will activate the G protein. When the G protein is activated, the alpha subunit will have GTP instead of GDP. Okay. The alpha GTP will be there. That will dissociate away from the beta and gamma subunit. Okay, you can see here the beta and gamma subunit will be dissociated from the alpha subunit, and the alpha subunit will be existing as G alpha GTP. Now this G alpha GTP will go and activate an enzyme called as adenylate cyclase. Adenylate cyclase is a membrane bound enzyme. Okay, it is a membrane bound enzyme. This will go and activate the adenylate cyclase. The activated adenylate cyclase, it has its function of converting ATP here to ATP to cyclic AMP. Okay, ATP will be converted to cyclic AMP by adenylate cyclase. Okay. So after the cyclic AMP is formed, this will activate the several protein kinases and the pathway goes on, which we will study in a while. But for now, let's know the activation and inactivation of G alpha protein. Okay. So when G alpha protein is activated, it will activate the adenylate cyclase and ATP will be converted to cyclic AMP and high concentration of cyclic AMP will be present. But your cell cannot have high concentration of cyclic AMP all the time, like not constitutively. Okay, after the work has been done, the receptor and all the function has to go back to its normal state, and for that, your cyclic AMP levels should decrease. And for decrease of cyclic AMP level, your G alpha GTP should go inactive. G alpha GTP should go inactive. And that is done by your enzyme GTPase activating protein that will hydrolyze GTP to GDP. Okay, hydrolysis of GTP to GDP will happen. Then you will have the product G alpha GDP. G alpha GDP will be there, to which your beta and gamma subunit will bind, and finally your G protein will be like heterotrimeric in nature and it will be inactive in nature. Okay, so this is what happens with the activation of G alpha GTP and inactivation of G alpha GTP. If G alpha GTP is activated, it will activate the adenylate cyclase. Finally, you will get more cyclic AMP. If G alpha GTP is inactivated, it will go back to its inactive structure where it will be bound to beta and gamma subunit and GDP. Okay, I hope this diagram is crystal clear to all of you because it is very self-explanatory, and I have explained the concept of GTP activation and inactivation like so many times here now. Let's move on to the further concepts. So hormones that transduce signal through cyclic AMP. So they're saying what are the ligands that can activate the cyclic AMP pathway. Okay, the ligands which can activate the cyclic AMP pathway are epinephrine, you have non-epinephrine, then you have glucagon, ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone, you have vasopressin, you have luteinizing hormone, then you have thyroid stimulating hormone. So all these hormones you have, okay, these are the things which are useful in the activation of the cyclic AMP pathway. Okay. So now let's go on to the cyclic AMP pathway. I've given you the enough introduction about all of the thing. Okay. Okay, I've given you the information about all the basic things now. So we will go into the cyclic AMP signaling pathway in detail now. Okay. So what happens in this is ligand. We've already discussed the ligands. What are the different kind of ligands which can be used? These are the different kinds of ligands which can activate the cyclic AMP pathway. Okay. So any one of it. Let's consider it to be epinephrine. Okay. Epinephrine here is the ligand that is binding to your receptor. Okay, so receptor will be activated. This is a G protein coupled receptor, serpentine receptor, transmembrane receptor, which will be activated. The activated receptor will activate the G protein. You know about the G protein that in the inactive state it will be bound to GDP and it is alpha, beta and gamma subunit, that is heterotrimer in nature. But when it is active, it will be bound to GTP here. You can see the activated G alpha will be bound to GTP, okay, and it will separate from the beta and gamma subunits. Okay, it will dissociate away from the beta and gamma subunits. G alpha GTP will dissociate away from the beta and gamma subunits. The beta and gamma subunits will be in the membrane region only. Only G alpha will dissociate away from it and go away. Okay, this G alpha GTP in its activated form will go and activate the enzyme called as adenylate cyclase. Okay, this will activate an enzyme called as adenylate cyclase, which is also membrane bound enzyme. We know the function of adenylate cyclase is that it converts ATP to cyclic AMP. Okay, adenylate cyclase will convert ATP to cyclic AMP. Okay, cyclic AMP, we know about its structure, we studied its function. Okay, so now what this cyclic AMP will do is it will activate protein kinase A. Okay, let's know a little bit about the protein kinase A. So protein kinase A has four subunits. It has two regulatory subunit and two catalytic subunits in its inactive state. Okay. When cyclic AMP binds to the regulatory subunit, like two cyclic AMP will bind to one regulatory subunit. Since you have two regulatory subunit here, four cyclic AMP will bind to the regulatory subunits. When cyclic AMP binds to the regulatory subunits, this gets detached from the catalytic subunit. So regulatory subunit and catalytic subunit will be detached from each other. Okay. So after the catalytic subunit is separated from the regulatory subunit, this becomes the activated pKa. pKa is protein kinase A. Okay, activated protein kinase A. Now this activated protein kinase A can phosphorylate several proteins, okay, several enzymes it can phosphorylate. Like it helps in the regulation of gene expression. It will phosphorylate glycogen phosphorylase, which is an enzyme for used for the breakdown of the glycogen to glucose. Then it will help in the muscle contraction in heart by increasing your heart rate. Okay, and it can also enter into the nucleus and transcribe CREB. Okay, CREB is nothing but cyclic AMP regulator binding protein. Okay, so it will help in the transcription of CREB proteins. Okay, so I hope you understand the concept here. What is your function of activated pKa? Okay, so activated pKa will phosphorylate several enzymes. Okay, it will phosphorylate several enzymes and like it is helpful in the gene expression. Okay, gene expression and glycogen phosphorylase function. It will phosphorylate it. So glycogen phosphorylase is an enzyme. What that will do is it will convert the glycogen to glucose, and in muscle, okay, muscle contraction in the heart, it will be helpful. Therefore, increases the heart rate. Again, this activated pKa can enter into the nucleus and transcribe the CREB. CREB is nothing but cyclic AMP response element binding protein. Okay, cyclic AMP response element binding protein. Okay, so this protein will be transcribed and further pathways will go on. Okay, so if this cyclic AMP pathway is on, there should be off also for this pathway, right? That is how the function could be regulated. There should be regulation of cyclic AMP because cyclic AMP cannot be always on. Okay, it cannot be always on. It has to be turned off after the function or the signaling pathway has been completed. So for that, enzymes are used. For regulation of cyclic AMP, there are two enzymes. One is to increase the concentration of cyclic AMP, the other one is to decrease the concentration of cyclic AMP. Okay. So the first one is adenylate cyclase, which we have already studied. This is adenylate cyclase that will convert ATP to cyclic AMP. Okay, so this is the increasing the concentration of cyclic AMP. The other enzyme is phosphodiesterase. You can see here PDE, phosphodiesterase. This will convert the cyclic AMP to 5-AMP. It will break the cyclization and this will become 5-AMP. When the cyclic AMP is converted to 5-AMP, it is no more a secondary messenger. Therefore, it cannot help in the activation of pKa. Okay, it is not a secondary messenger. It cannot activate protein kinase A. So this is how the inhibition of cyclic AMP happens with the help of the enzyme phosphodiesterase. Okay, so this slide is like a revision slide where whatever I've explained you to diagram, okay, so whatever I have explained you through the diagram, this is the summary. This is like a summary slide. So what happens? Hormone and receptor will bind. Receptor will get activated, which will in turn activate the G protein. So activated G protein will have GTP bound to it. So that is called as G alpha GTP that will activate the adenylate cyclase. Adenylate cyclase will convert the ATP to cyclic AMP. Cyclic AMP will go and activate the protein kinase A by cleaving it off from the regulatory subunit. Only catalytic subunit will be there, which will be activated pKa or protein kinase A. This activated protein kinase A can then phosphorylate several enzymes and do its function. So this is the summary of the pathway which we have studied now. And about the down regulation, which means after the work has been done, a desensitization of the ligand from its receptor has to take place. So what happens here? Hormone will unbind from the receptor. Okay, GTP will be converted to GDP and G protein will become inactive. Adenylate cyclase will become inactive. Then cyclic AMP will be converted to 5-AMP by the enzyme phosphodiesterase. All these points we have studied now, okay, in the diagrammatic way. This is the summary slide where you can just go through what has happened, okay, like understand it. So this is another diagram which explains you the same concept. So this will be like a revision for you. So what happens is epinephrine will come and bind to the receptor here. Okay, G protein coupled receptor that will activate the G protein. Okay, activated G protein means G alpha GTP. G alpha GTP. Okay, it will dissociate from the beta and gamma subunit. Okay, this G alpha GTP will go and activate your adenylate cyclase. Okay, adenylate cyclase will convert ATP to cyclic AMP. Then the cyclic AMP will activate protein kinase A. Protein kinase A will activate several enzymes and one of which is glycogen phosphorylase, which will convert glycogen to glucose. Okay. And how does the amplification of signal happens? It is not like one norepinephrine or epinephrine binds mean only one molecule of glucose will be produced in the end. There will be several of it. So how does the amplification occurs? You have to know how the amplification occurs. Okay. So you have a enzyme. Okay, you have enzyme which will amplify your products. Okay, we'll study about this in this diagram. So let's say the hormone epinephrine or norepinephrine, anything, it is binding to your receptor G protein coupled receptor. Okay, so your hormone is binding to your G protein coupled receptor. So your receptor will get activated. So this activated receptor does not activate only one G protein. Okay, this will activate several G proteins. So the activated G protein coupled receptor here will activate several G proteins. Okay, the G protein after it gets activated will activate the adenylyl cyclase. Okay, activation of adenylyl cyclase will take place here. So one adenylyl cyclase will activate several amount of cyclic AMP. Okay, one adenylyl cyclase will activate several amount of cyclic AMP. Okay, From one enzyme, you will get lots and lots of products. That is your cyclic AMP. You know the cyclic AMP will activate the protein kinase A. Okay, this protein kinase A will phosphorylate several reactions. Okay, it will phosphorylate several different kinds of enzymes. So this is how your amplification takes place here. So one receptor will activate several G protein, one adenylyl cyclase will activate and convert several cyclic AMPs, and this protein kinase A will phosphorylate several proteins or enzymes. You can see here the amplification is taking place by the help of your enzyme. The protein kinase A, adenylyl cyclase, all of these are amplifying the products because they are enzymes. Okay. So you have studied about the enzymes, right? In the biochemistry, we have studied enzymes. The substrate binds to the enzyme. After giving the product, the enzyme becomes free. So again, a next substrate can come and bind to the enzyme and give the product. So by sequential manner, substrates will come and bind to the enzyme and products will be produced. That is how your amplification of signal is taking place here. Okay. So molecules that activate the cyclic AMP pathway are toxin, caffeine and pertussis toxin, and molecules that inhibit your cyclic AMP pathway are phosphodiesterase enzyme and G alpha inhibitory, that is GI alpha. Okay, these are some of the molecules that activate your cyclic AMP pathway and inhibit your cyclic AMP pathway. Very important to know because they might ask you MCQs from these things. Okay, so very important. So note it down. Okay. Alright, so we have completed the cyclic AMP pathway. Okay, I have always revised that to you like 2-3 times. I've done the revision for cyclic AMP pathway also in the process of teaching you. Now next pathway which we are going to deal about is IP3 and DAG pathway. Very important pathway. Okay, from this pathway also you will get so many questions for the life science exams. Okay, not only for GATE but for any life science exam. Okay, so don't restrict the concepts you're learning here just for GATE. Yes, it is covering exclusively for GATE, but these concepts are not only restricted to your GATE examination. Okay, it goes beyond that. It can be helpful for you in several different kind of exams, like for CSIR, if you're preparing, all of these concepts you'll study there. If you're preparing for your DBT exam, ICMR exam, or for any PhD entrance exam, okay, even for your college exams, all of these concepts are important. Okay, so for several different examinations, these concepts are common, which means these are very important. Okay, for all the exams, if you are having some concepts which are common everywhere, which means those concepts are very important and you cannot afford to not learn it. Okay. So now we are going to talk about IP3 and DAG pathway. So I hope you guys are making note of the pathways because these are the handwritten notes. Okay, I'm giving you these handwritten notes because you can copy them. You can copy them in your notebook and it will be easy for your revision purpose. Okay, it will be easy for your revision purpose. That way you can understand the concepts of these pathway in a very simplified manner. Okay. So let's understand IP3 DAG pathway. Okay, this is the simplified diagram of IP3 DAG pathway, a very overview types. Okay, so you have a ligand that binds to your receptor. Okay, G protein coupled receptor. This G protein coupled receptor will have G proteins. The activated G protein will activate an enzyme called as phospholipase C. Okay, phospholipase C is an enzyme that will be activated by the G protein. Okay, now what happens is phospholipase C is an enzyme that will act on, okay, that will act on PIP2. PIP2 is nothing but phosphatidyl inositol 4,5 bisphosphate. Okay, phosphatidyl inositol 4,5 bisphosphate is your PIP2. The short form is PIP2. Okay, so PLC, which is phospholipase C, will act on PIP2 and convert it into IP3 and DAG. This IP3 and DAG are secondary messengers. As I'm teaching you the pathways, we'll study several pathways. I'll tell you what are the secondary messengers. Please note it down. Okay, because in the previous lecture itself, I told you that they might ask you a question like which of the following is a secondary messenger. They'll give you four options and you should be in a position to actually find out which is the secondary messenger. So whenever I'm telling you the points like this is important, note it down. Okay. So this phospholipase A will break down PIP2 into IP3 and DAG. Okay. DAG is membrane bound. Okay. It will be bound to the membrane. IP3. Okay. This IP3. Okay, DAG is nothing but diacylglycerol. Okay. IP3 is another product that will go into the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Okay. It will go into the smooth endoplasmic reticulum and open the calcium ion channels. By opening the calcium ion channels, all the calcium which is stored within the SCR will come out. It will come out and the cytosolic concentration of the calcium ion will increase. So this is the overview of the IP3 DAG pathway, okay? And the ligands which are used here are neurotransmitters can be the ligands, hormones can be present, the ligands, and growth factors, angiotensin 2. So all of these are your ligands, okay? Ligands for your IP3 and DAG pathway, okay? Okay, so let's study the concepts in detail for IP3 and DAG. So this is the ligand. Okay, we saw the ligands can be neurotransmitter, hormones, growth factors, angiotensin 2. Okay, it can be any of it. So the ligand binds to the G protein coupled receptor. You know that it's a serpentine receptor. It's a transmembrane receptor. Activation of receptor happens that will activate the G protein. The activated G protein will be G alpha GTP, which will dissociate from the beta and gamma subunit. This G alpha GTP will go and activate the this enzyme, okay, phospholipase C. G alpha GTP will go and activate phospholipase C beta, which is a membrane bound enzyme. Okay, this phospholipase C will act on PIP2 and convert PIPT to IP3 and DAG. IP3 is nothing but your inositol triphosphate. Okay, inositol triphosphate, and DAG is your diacylglycerol. Okay, so you are getting two products from the breakdown of PIP2, that is IP3 and DAG. DAG is membrane bound. Okay, so DAG is membrane bound. You know that. IP3 will go to the endoplasmic reticulum and open the calcium ion channels, thereby moving out, mobilizing all the calcium which is in the storage to the cytoplasm. It will increase the concentration of calcium in the cytoplasm. Now, calcium ions along with DAG, that is diacylglycerol, will activate an enzyme called as protein kinase C. It will activate protein kinase C here, okay? And this protein kinase C will phosphorylate different proteins and the pathway goes on for different proteins, okay? So this is the common pathway, and after this the phosphorylation of the proteins will happen, and based on the protein the pathway will differ. Okay, that is not required for us. IP3 DAG pathway ends here itself. So in the G protein coupled receptor cyclic AMP pathway, we saw that there is activation of protein kinase A. Okay, cyclic AMP is protein kinase A. Phospholipase C pathway or IP3 DAG pathway, it is protein kinase C here. Activation of protein kinase C is happening here. Okay. So IP3 mobilize calcium ions from the smooth endoplasmic reticulum to regulate the different pathways. So increase in calcium ions means smooth muscle contraction will take place, and these are some of the what do I say? The use of the IP3 pathway, like IP3 if it is in your brain, that will help in the synaptic plasticity, helpful in the memory formation, and in sea urchins polyspermy reaction will be there. Okay, slow block polyspermy will be there. which is nothing. I think you know what is polyspermy, which means one egg will be fertilized by so many different sperm. That is polyspermy, which is lethal, which is not a good condition. It will lead to ploidy condition and genetic disorders. In order to avoid polyspermy, there are several pathways which is not necessary for us. Okay, it is not at all necessary for us. It comes in developmental biology for the CSIR, not necessary for us. So just this is to give you like an application of IP3 DAG pathway, but mainly it will mobilize the calcium ions to the cytoplasm, and calcium ions is useful in several reactions like muscle contraction. Up to this, if you know this, it is more than enough. You do not have to know about synaptic plasticity or about the polyspermy and all. But yeah, for like extra knowledge, you can definitely know it. Okay, so our lecture on G protein coupled receptor, where we studied about cyclic AMP pathway and IP3 DAG pathway, is over now. I hope you guys understood the concepts really well. And as I told you, have notes of these concepts because these are pathway. Okay, you cannot simply study from your book. You have to write and see. You have to keep practicing, like write the pathway once or twice. It will be registered in your brain without any problem. Okay, you'll not forget it also. So keep studying, revising, and practicing, which is our mantra. So like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Gurmantra Shiksha Ka Granth. If you have any queries, you can contact us without any hesitation.